Now they don't sit on the 40 acres on campus grounds. We gather round, discussing goals and dreams and life's adventures. The Texas Longhorns, they're the talk of the town. High castles of the 40 acres, where we dive deep into the game day stories. From touchdowns to heartbreakers, we discuss it all. Texas Longhorns glory. There we gather round each Thursday night, talking sports, it's so alright. From football to basketball, baseball to softball, Tim Wayne and Harry, we cover it all. Sports talk is our passion, our delight. Thursday night at 8:30, we unite. We discuss the scores, the plays, the teams who might. Let's dive into the game, let's ignite.
12 conference champions.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is your boys from the Texas Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. My name is Harish. Of course, you guys know me. That's my guy, Tim Wayne. And we brought back our guy, Steven, from Fanatic Perspective. Gentlemen, what's going on tonight?
My fingers hurt.
Tim has been playing nothing but college football 25 for the last 72 hours. So his brain, his sleep, his eat, and his fingers are all in the same spot. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well. Excited to talk about ball. It's right around the corner. SEC Media Days and getting everybody charged up. But I'm excited to be back on and talking. Everybody throw us a like, subscribe, the whole bit. You know, as you come in, we take attendance. So appreciate y'all.
Can you turn your mic up a little bit? I think it's like a little on the soft side.
It is. Testing. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's better. There we go. Right. I'll turn me up as well. All right. Awesome, man. Well, welcome back. Thank you for coming back on the show. We appreciate it. We had a lot of fun last time we did this, so we appreciate you jumping on. For those of you guys that are joining in for the Fanatic Perspective YouTube channel, you guys don't know us. We're the Texas Longhorn Fan Battle. We actually just hit our 1-year anniversary last week, and I failed to mention that. And I obviously, with all the excitement of everything that was happening in the world of video games, I totally forgot to mention that we just passed our 1-year anniversary. So I guess we are now officially season 2 of the Texas Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. For those of you guys that are listening over the airwaves, I will be more consistent as far as posting things on Apple Music, Spotify, all those good spots, so you guys can start to get that content back up on there. I apologize. There's just been a lot going on, but we got lots of comments in the chat from the Fanatic Perspective guys, and we really appreciate it. So let's get to those real quick before we pay the bills. Corey Peacock, what's up, man? Hook 'em horns. Logan says, Sark reminding people of the SEC that the eyes of Texas are upon them. The fact that Texas was a very, very highly contested name of topic in all sorts of ways is definitely something we will talk about, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think about that. Cameron Parker says, what's up, Steve? What up from Chris Bennett? What's good, Chris? Steve, did you make the song? Yes, Steve made the song. We appreciate him for it. Credits to Steve. No, that song is actually it's actually created by AI. I just put in a bunch of words and AI took it from there. And I said that's what's up, and that's what we rolled with. Yep. And Cameron asked, Steve, my dog, even though you never brought me back on a show after internet.
Cameron, I'm gonna bring you back, bro. I'm gonna bring you back. Nah, I know what he's talking about. Cameron.
Hey, that's good, man. We're all still homies here, right? We're all still homies here. How does it feel to be hated by the rest of the SEC? I don't think we're hated at all. I think we're actually the team that everybody loves to talk about. We are, as always, the team.
I have a difference of opinion there, sir.
Oh, I don't think anybody hates us at all. I think they just keep thinking about us.
When we get to that point, I'll discuss what just from what it seems like, just being in a room full of coaches and men, that I don't have the same sentiment, unfortunately.
The same sense that people don't hate us, or people do hate us?
I think people are super annoyed with us
already. Oh yeah, no, I completely agree, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. And then Cameron D. Parker. I don't know what that means, but Chris says Cameron D. Parker. Good old Yo from Dimpled Wonder. What's up? What's up? And then Alan Makeda. Hook 'em horns.
Welcome.
Alrighty. Let's pay some bills real quick, gentlemen. We'll get right to it. FanBattleSports.com, where you can get the latest and greatest from the ASC South, including the Mayo Eaton Titans, the Texans, the Colts, and the Jaguars. FanBattleSports.com. If you're interested in starting your own show, hit us up with the Contact Us button. We'll help you get all the assets all figured out, get you all squared away with the StreamYard account so you can start your own show. FanBattleSports.com. Of course, if you guys follow us on Twitter, we are at LH Fan Battle. I do see some familiar names from Steven's chat that I've seen that we've seen and interacted with on the Twitter waves. So obviously, if you are not following, please follow us on Twitter. We'd like to get to 3,000 followers before the start of the football season. That's like 45 days or so, 43 days. So help us get there to 3,000. We'd be very, very appreciative. But yeah, follow us on Twitter at LH Fan Battle. Of course, while you guys are here, go to our YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe. We are live every Thursday nights, talking everything from Texas football, obviously basketball, baseball, with all the fun stuff that's happening there. Anything and everything Texas Longhorns. We are talking about it, and we will always add our splash of college football 25. As you guys know, we are two former EA employees, and we have grown up with this game being around, leaving, and now coming back, and we are very excited. So, but yeah, gentlemen, Steven, do you want to give us a quick introduction before we get going here, just for those that don't know who you are, for our viewers that don't know who you are, and just to give everybody a refresher since it's been a minute?
Sure. Well, thank you guys for having me on and doing the cross production here tonight. Steven from Fanatic Perspective. Been around YouTube for a while now, and the name there is on all the socials where you can find me. Huge Texas fan, and everything is from the it's in the name, right? Everything is from the perspective of me as a fan and the team I love, the Texas Longhorns. Being front and center. Also a huge Cowboys fan, Spurs fan, boxing fan. So a bunch of stuff over there. Excited for this season. I've been very ill recently, so I'm just excited to be healthy again and be back to talking about sports and making content again. I know I've been out for a while, but we are now in the SEC, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. And we again, thank you for coming back on our show. This was a lot of fun last time, and of course, we hope to continue to do these types of things. Couple more comments before we get started. I think they low-key worried about us. That's why they're so bothered. Just want to show hate. I would completely agree with this, Cameron. I do think they are worried about us. Everything from Nick Saban picking us to be in the SEC title game did not. It kind of rubbed people the wrong way. All the questions about Horns Down and how they tried to offend us and it didn't work. There's so much to talk about. A17 says, bro, what's up? What's up, A17?
What's up? I'm seeing my OGs in here.
Hey, we got some folks in here tonight. Dimple Water says, very solid media days. I love watching Shark speak. I love that you said this. And Steve, let's actually dive into this real quick. Do you guys get like this sense of like, can't wait to hear what he has to say when it comes to Sark when he gets on that podium? Because when there's in my lifetime, there's always been like when certain people speak, I get very excited to hear them speak just because of the way they speak and the things that they say. Do you guys get that same sense of feeling when you hear Steve Sarkeesian speak?
He has a natural sense of charisma. That's what he's possessed that since his days at USC. I mean, going back to when he was an up and coming younger coach. They always talked about his how charismatic he was, how engaging he was behind the scenes. You see that every time he steps to the microphone. I mean, and the thing with Sark now is he's even more comfortable now in his role here at Texas and being the head coach of Texas, promoting Texas football, what it means, and then combining that with his experience in the SEC and how comfortable. It's just a sense of comfort, but also that natural charisma, and he's polished, right? There's nothing you're going to hear Sark say that's going to be taken out of context or things that are going to be going to, there's certain coaches that, to each their own. We'll talk about storylines today. There's been some very controversial things said. You won't really get that from Sark. Sark is going to be a lot more presidential in the way that he articulates certain things and addresses his program and the message that he wants to send across. So no surprise there. That's how he's always been.
Yeah. Tim, what are your thoughts?
To kind of piggyback what Steven says, it does come across that Sark is very polished, and that not. I don't want to sit up here and say that he is polished, but then he also speaks the truth. But I think he finds a nice balance, right? He talks about, first off, he starts by, paying his respects to the Kiffin family with Monty. He talks about, they're honoring Nick Saban this week. So, he's also, admittedly said, hey, without Nick Saban here, I would not be here. He's basically given him an opportunity of a lifetime, and he shows a lot of gratitude and a lot of credit towards Nick Saban. So, I think that's really cool that he's able to just kind of be open and honest about certain things, but still, stroke the masses per se, for lack of a better words. And I think what he said, as far as, in totality, I really enjoyed the press conference. I can't say I haven't really enjoyed a presser since maybe year 5 or year 6, that Mac was around. At that time that was starting to gain a little bit more speed as far as, these things being televised and being talked about on the radio and things like that. So I would say it's been a long time since I enjoyed an SEC presser or just a presser in general. Highly, he seems really motivated. I don't think you can definitely tell that this is not he just doesn't want to be a part of the SEC. He actually wants to win.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that. The one thing that I think really, and then also finally, he gets over a couple of humps in his career, right? Yep. He finally gets double digits in his career. He finally is able to see a program through that he's built, and he doesn't, something doesn't derail it or something doesn't happen where he has to hand it off to somebody. We talked about this a lot early in the offseason, Tim and I, where this is the first time Sark has actually gotten through year and he's carrying a program beyond that, and that helps a lot. And the people that he talks about all the time with his issues with alcoholism, which is it's not an easy thing to deal with. Right. I've dealt with it. It's very difficult, and you need to have somebody there that's kind of somebody that you lean on, right? And I had a great support system, and he had a great support system, and he talks a lot of, that's why he gives a lot of credit to Nick Saban, because you need that one guy, that one person, that one presence to give you that one opportunity to help redeem yourself. And it's kind of like, this is my test after all the studying I've done over the last 3 or 4 years, right? And Nick Saban gave him that opportunity. And honestly, from Sark's perspective, he owes him that gratitude, and he definitely makes that well known. And I think that's carried him to kind of the type of, not just the type of coach that he is, but just the type of person that he is now. He's no longer taking anything for granted, and I think that's very cool to see. I think I'm going to start here when it comes to SEC Media Days. Obviously, we get the opening statement. The first interesting thing that I heard this week, and we can start here, is I think Greg Sankey mentions that the conference will not expand beyond where we're at today. Now, that could just be commissioner speak, because we know the landscape of college football and how things can change in a hurry.
Right.
Tim, what are kind of your thoughts there? And then obviously, as rumors in the same week that FSU and Clemson are trying to make moves quickly to get out of the ACC ASAP. Is this commissioner speak, or you think there's some validity to this? And think he's comfortable with where we're at?
I think it's hogwash, to be completely honest with you. Listen, we've been talking about, well, we haven't been talking about it, but it's kind of been flying under the radar. I think it's finally starting to pick up steam because of SEC Media Days. Clemson and Jesus, I just drew a blank. Florida State have been trying to get out of the SEC since February. They've been trying to package themselves to get out reportedly since February. I'm pretty sure it's probably been longer than that, but since the first report that I saw was in February, early February at that. Again, there's another TV deal coming up here, 2026. So I would not be surprised if that with that new TV deal, that something, a realignment happens. It makes too much sense. Again, location wise, it makes sense, honestly. And those are not two small brands. Those are two really big brands. And especially within the last couple of years, I wouldn't see it. I think Greg is full of it currently right now.
What are your thoughts, Steven?
So, this kind of, the Big 12 has been aggressive with trying to get, expand their conference and really become that third super conference. Right now we have two super conferences between the Big 10 and the SEC. Brett's goal is to be the third one. And really from there, it's going to be interesting, because I predicted a couple of years back we would eventually get to a point, kind of the four big change pillars, change agents in college football, NIL, transfer portal, playoff system, and super conferences, right? Like those are the big four major change agents in college football. I thought it would be four conferences, and maybe it's going to look like more closer to three. But as they have these conversations, I'm also thinking about other schools like NC State, right, and Virginia, and like really good programs in the ACC, because I don't know how the ACC survives with losing those schools. North Carolina, right?
Miami.
So the Sankey stuff, I say that to say this. If you don't think that the SEC is going to be considering utilizing some of those schools, Miami, North Carolina, or whoever, to go from 16 to 24 at some point, come on. I mean, the Big Ten is going to be having conversations.
Sure.
Eventually Notre Dame's going to have to do something. I mean, they're the ones sitting out there too. So there's still a lot of movement. This is kind of 1.0 of the super conferences.
Yeah.
But Sankey has to protect them. He just added two big fish right now.
Right.
right? So you gotta. We're literally having the first. We got here June 30th. So he can't he can't already be on the prowl yet again, right? But we know that back channeling wise.
Oh yeah, there's
Come
talks.
on now.
Yeah,
Right.
there's talks.
I think the speed and if you listen to your mark last week, he's openly aggressive. Obviously, after losing Texas and OU, he's openly aggressive about getting Florida State, Florida State, Clemson. Miami is probably another market that he probably wants to tap into. North Carolina, I'm sure he's very open to adding the schools like that to help booster and bolster that talk.
And it would be smart. It would be smart, honestly, if you think about it. You'll be able to cover both coasts. That's something that you could sell possibly. Hey, we're going to be expanded from coast to coast. We got southern states. We've got states on the West Coast. We got states on the we got schools on the West Coast. We got schools on the East Coast. That's how you can market that to people that you want to recruit. That could be how you market things on TV for these TV deals. I mean, your market, it would be in his best interest to try to go for it, but I just don't see it happening. Again, SEC is the best conference, and I think that's just the way that's gonna fall. Now, do I think the Big 12 will possibly expand? Yeah, of course, but I just don't see Florida State or Clemson possibly going to the Big 12 currently. But I could be wrong.
I'd be very interested, and I think SMU is a fish out there nobody wants to talk about. I've talked about SMU quite a bit. They've got the resourcing and the money. They don't necessarily have the program prestige, I guess you could say, yet, but they've got the funds and they've got the pipeline. But the Big 12 could look at something like that and say, well, we've already got DFW. Do we really need that with TCU? But that's probably a school to keep an eye out on to see if he can go anywhere.
Even
though they just got added to the ACC.
Yeah, they just they just went to the ACC. I mean,
what 5-6 years maybe is. I don't know how long those deals go.
But I think Harish, you're on the line of thinking down the road. I mean, this is really future talk, but eventually the ACC devolves. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So then they would be back out on the market again. Schools
Steven, do you think with the possibility and the additions of a Clemson and a Florida State, let's just say 2026, it does happen. They get the new deals, the new TV deals. Clemson, Florida State joins the SEC. What happens to the ACC from that point? What do they do from that point?
You mean they join the Big 12?
I'm sorry. Yeah, they join the Big 12. Yeah.
Or anywhere, honestly.
Yeah, then they're on life support the way the Pac-12 was, right? And is where they're having drinks instead of media. I mean, it's sad, but it's the reality of the situation. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we're going to eventually have just 3 massive groups. I mean, it just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether these groups reside under the governing body of the NCAA is a question.
That's the real question.
Or if they decide to go under their own governing body. But they are going. But they've already decided this is the way we're going. I mean, to me, it's rather obvious. It's been obvious for years, and that's why you've seen these conferences already start to fall apart. Who would have thought the Pac-12 would have been that way 10 years ago?
Nobody.
Right? Nobody.
Yeah, and as fast as it happened, right? But as you saw with the Pac-12, all it takes is your 2 major markets, and if they dip, everyone's
it's
trying
mass exodus. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah. This isn't far from the conversation we had in our first episode a year ago, where you and I, Tim, we had a prediction of the NCAA being gone as a governing body within 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, right? I don't think it'll be around anymore. And it looks like, based on the way things are moving and the way teams are moving, if it goes according to what anybody thinks within the next 4 or 5 years, especially with this new deal rolling up pretty soon, I could definitely see 4, 5 maybe conferences where they're all super conferences, and they have their own governing body, and they pick a chairman to run the league. Because basically that's what it becomes, right? It becomes an actual league.
Yeah. So we'll continue to monitor that. This is a very interesting question, and I don't think there's any validity to this. I think this is more fan talk than it is actual like school talk. But isn't A&M trying to run again? Where would they go to? I mean, let's hypothetically say A&M runs to the Big Ten. Is that in their best interest? Does it do it?
So that would just be, and I think it's more fan talk, honestly. I mean, from a money standpoint, they need to just suck it up and realize that SEC is now they're not the only Texas team in the SEC, but they're going to gain financially from it. Now, the Big Ten aspect is the Big Ten gets to stake claim in Texas, and that access for their conference too, right? Same conversation we're having about the Big 12 and trying to touch both coasts. So it's more of a touch thing, and I get it. I mean, the Big Ten, they're the other super conference right now, but to me, it's more fan. I have not put a lot of energy into it because I haven't seen anybody of any significance that I trust, of any credibility, say anything like this.
Right.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
I put a lot of laughter into it. I think it's pretty funny. But that's about all the energy I've given into it. So, Lexus, hey, Steve, you've been gone for a while, man. You got a lot of fans that are excited that you're back.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Van heading back. Lexus can't believe this is real. This is real, Lexus. We are excited. Steve is. We have reintroduced him back into the YouTube market. So, Alan mentions FSU and Clemson making a new conference with Wazoo and Oregon State. They'll play each other 4 times a year. A17 says that the NCAA is bleeding out. Yeah, I think this.
I agree 1,000%
on this. This is. I said 10 years a year ago, and now I think that might even be way less than that. I think
we're finally seeing the death of the NCAA,
yeah.
And from a football perspective, we're seeing the death of the NCAA as far as college football is concerned.
Yeah, I think with the introduction of NIL next year, with the obviously we talked about House versus NCAA about a month ago with the renewal of that. I think you're heading your way into a CFBPA, if you will, where it's similar to the NFLPA, but you're going to have like a college football players association that represents the players, a true formal association. It will become this semi-pro thing. I hate to say it that way, but I think that's what it's going to turn into. And I think it's inevitable. And I don't even know who the NCAA commission is anymore, but I feel like I haven't heard from him in like a year, or seen him or done much of anything. I feel like a lot of the conferences are just kind of doing their own thing, and that guy's just like collecting a paycheck somewhere, focusing on the other sports, I guess. My Mustangs can't win for losing. Listen, I'm a big proponent of SMU and also big warning shot person for SMU because we know that they've got resources over there in Dallas. So Aggie said they're not looking to leave. Rumors started in Austin. Yeah, I think this is right, Corey. It's kind of what we've discussed. Of course, Isaac misses you.
What's up, Isaac? My man.
He knows that when he sees Steve, football season right around the corner. Real quick, you want to talk? We haven't discussed this at all, Steven. You want to talk about your most impactful transfer portal guy before we get back in line here, offense and defense? Who do you think?
Yeah, just to answer Isaac's question, I'm kind of picking the big name guys here because we're in the SEC now and we're looking for immediate production, and also this is also based upon precedent we're starting to set in terms of developing guys in that final step to go to the NFL. So I'm going to look at Isaiah Bond on offense, right? Okay. And we had 4 pass catchers get drafted in the NFL draft between Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, Adonai Mitchell, and our tight end Jatavian Sanders, right? So top tier talent around the country is starting to That's not even to mention what Sark did with the Bama kids, right?
Yep.
Now he's doing it with the Texas kids. So people are starting to take note of, hey, if I'm trying to get to the league and have production and really be showcased and featured in a true NFL style offense, this is the place you need to be. So Isaiah Bond being one of those, he's already been a big time performer at the highest stage. He came from the playoffs as well. We played up against them last year.
Yep.
On defense, I'm gonna go with my guy Andrew Makuba out of Austin. He, you know, he got away the first time, and I'm hoping we see the version of Andrew Makuba that Clemson got his freshman season. He's been up and down and banged up, but when he's on, you get a prime communicator. You get somebody who is great at the line of scrimmage, also rangy, and can do a bunch of things. He would have been drafted. He was a draftable guy this year had he come out. Mm-hmm. This is more about, hey, similar to Jahdae Barron, I'm not comfortable with the grade I got. I think I'm more of a high day 2 guy, and I can also make some money now in college. So Bond and Makuba are my guys. I got to go with the high end folks here. That's why they were brought in.
Right. What you got, Tim?
Trey Moore. Again, solidifying that defensive line, getting some edge rushers in there. Again, anytime that you can produce 14 sacks in a season, that's really impressive. Even being at UTSA, that's really, really, really impressive. And UTSA, being completely honest, UTSA is starting to pump out a little bit of they're starting to pump out some defensive linemen. They've always had talent, but they're starting to pump out NFL talent, like high-end NFL talent. And I definitely feel that Trey Moore is going to be a part of that. I think the other on the offensive side, man, I'm gonna say the tight end from Alabama, Black. I can't pronounce his first name.
Amari Niblack.
Yeah.
Amari Niblack. I've heard Amiri. I've heard Amari, but Niblack. I think just to get in there and just to kind of fill that hole that Jatavian Sanders is, left. Jatavian Sanders has left a massive hole. Now, again, we do have some impressive freshman coming in. I forget the gentleman's name, but he's a freak of nature. I talked about him earlier this year and how I was really excited to see what he does. I do think he'll be able to get in there and kind of play around, kind of like Gunnar Helm did. That first year. Gunnar wasn't the necessarily the starter, but he did have some huge plays throughout the season. I definitely feel that the freshman will be able to have that impact. But it's not Black for me, man. I really like what he does, and he's a big one. He's fast and he can move. So that's who I would go with.
Yeah, I'll start with my offensive guy because Steven's still my defensive guy. I'm very huge on Makuba. And after we had Coach Williams on the show, we got a chance to watch some film with him. And the communication piece is the key piece to that. Yeah. It's desperately needed on the back end of this defense. So Makuba, more lockstep on that one. I'm going to go Silas Bolden. One of the things that Stark talks about a lot is versatility. And Silas Bolden brings versatility, and I think he's going to bring versatility in a role that I don't think people are expecting. We know about his punt returning abilities. We know about his punt returning abilities. He's electric in the special teams game. Steve Sarkeesian is he mentions in his press conference how excited he is about the special teams taking the next step and continuing to grow on what they've already got. Silas Bolden is also going to be a really good receiver. He can go outside. He can go slot. He can go, he can play short routes, deep routes. He's an excellent route runner. He's got a lot of different things in the route tree that he can pull out. And he's just one of those guys that, Bolden's going to beat you over the top. He's very good at his, or Bond is going to beat you over the top. I know we don't talk about Golden. He's going to be a guy that's going to be your big guy. You talk about your RPOs, you talk about things like that. But I think if you talk about a guy that's got everything, in the route tree, I think Silas Bolden is the guy that's it's impressed me the most, and he's also the guy that's actually out of all of them, the guy that is talked about the most. Quarterbacks, wide receivers. I mean, Arch Manning talked about Bolden. Ewers talked about Bolden this week, and we'll dig into that. But I think when you talk about versatility and what Sark's looking for, he kind of embodies that, and I'm very, very excited to see what Bolden's going to bring to this team, because I think he's going to be an absolute monster in this offense and just in this program in general. All right, gentlemen, let's get into this, because I think some of the guys are in the chat are already talking about some of the things I want to talk about. Sark's opening statement, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. He kind of mentions a couple of things that I think are interesting. Obviously, he starts off with, Monty Williams and the respect that Monty Williams has brought to the game. There's a couple of things that he mentions that I thought were very, very interesting. Number one, he kind of says, the one word that he's very excited about being the SEC. He's got, respect is the one thing that he says. We will have respect for our opponents, our coaches, and our opposing fans, but they won't necessarily have the same for us, and that's something for us to essentially gain from the rest of the conference, right? We've got to come in. We've got to be able to perform at a high level. We've got to be able to show what we think we're essentially grateful for, or what we think we're great at. And I think that's kind of how he started. Secondly, another thing that kind of stuck out to me, he says that the goal isn't just to come here and compete, right? The goal is to come here, and the expectation and the goal is that they win the SEC title year one. They want to come in with a bang. That's something that he mentioned. It's something that he talks to his players about. And then also thirdly, and I thought this is the most important, I think this shows program growth. It's just what he sees in this football team. He first mentions that this is the most talented football team that he's had in his 4 years here, and I would completely agree with him. He talks a lot about versatility. He talks a lot about how guys can do different things and how that's very important in this conference. He also mentions that this is the deepest wide receiver group that he's had in all 4 years he's been here. And then he also goes on to say that his first year all the way up to now, he has had multiple leaders on this team. This is his first team where it's all his guys. Everybody has grown up in the program at this point. So there's you've got your transfers, right? But the core of the team, the leadership core of the team, has grown up in this program, and it's something that he calls out that he's very, very excited for. As we go through what he's talked about in his opening statement, is there anything that you guys thought about, or is there anything that sticks out to you throughout his entire opening speech, or his opening show, I guess you could say? We'll start with you, Steven.
Nothing too crazy there, right? I mean, it's coach speak.
Yeah.
Now it's good stuff. I mean, the thing I look at is when he talks about, all right, we're coming here to try to win the conference. Well, I mean, Vegas has your over under at 10.5 games. I mean, like that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, there's nothing else he should say other than that, right? The thing I look at too with Sark is last year Texas was picked to win the Big 12, and they actually delivered on those expectations. Mm-hmm. Now we're in a new conference with those expectations, and it's the same type of thing, right? It's, we've actually been in the position where we're being hunted because we were picked that way. I mean, one would say, well, Texas hadn't won the conference forever. It doesn't matter. Once people pick you to win the conference, the bullseye's on you. Yep. And they delivered last year. Now in a new conference, Sark is very familiar with this conference. But like you're even saying, the comment about the team and leadership, right? This is one thing I've always appreciated about Sark from the beginning. He said in 2021, if you on the team, you one of my guys. No, none of this, you were recruited by Charlie, you were recruited by Tom Herman. We have, because if you think about it, we have not had those conversations about factions in our locker room in a long time, because he said, if you want to go. If, all respect to you, if you came here to play for Coach Herman and some other of the staff, That makes sense. But if you decide to stay, you're my guy.
Right.
And that's how you nip it in the bud. And so, yeah, technically this is the year where it's people he's recruited. But if you think about the culture started getting built with guys like Bijan or Roshan a couple years back. That it's now starting to cycle. So no, nothing he said that was crazy. I just look at the expectations up against what he's saying, right?
Sure.
And we're picked because it's going to lead. This is where the conversation is going to go, right? All these other teams are getting asked about Texas and Texas. It's not Sark bringing that noise. It's not really Texas.
Yeah.
It's everybody else bringing that noise. You know why? Because this team is freaking good,
Right.
and this team is coming off of a playoff appearance, and there's high expectations, right?
Yep.
And so on top of the brand of Texas, so I mean, at the end of the day, can he do what he did last year with this group and have them play up to those expectations? Because they did it, and that's something where now he's looking at it from a position where I'm proven, right?
Yeah.
Now, not necessarily in the SEC, but as a coach with my program, I'm proven.
It comes down to, can he retool and hit the same expectations, right? Because he rebuilt and did what he did last year. Now you lose all those guys, you lose all the wide receivers, you lose some guys in the back end of the defense, or whether they left or whatever the case might be. You had 11 guys drafted last year. That's the most in the history of the program.
Right.
That is not a small, that's a very, very high level achievement. Now, can you retool and go do it again and do even better? Both, by the way, in the best conference in the nation, and that's something that we're all very anxious to see, and I think we're all confident that he can definitely come in and make some noise this year in the SEC. Tim, what are your thoughts on kind of his opening statement, so we can kind of go from there?
Just I think the theme for this year going into the year, if it hadn't already started, is something that he harped on, and he made a bunch of comments. He said it quite a few times, but I don't, just from a player standpoint, from a player listening to a coach, right? I'm listening at this coach, and he's harping on respect. Not only is he saying that he's coming in with respect, and they're coming in with respect, they're also looking to get it. And I think on the back end of that, he wants to make them, like, he wants to make these teams respect him. And that is going to be the entire they're going to come in here. I'm going to assume they're going to come in here and they're going to be pissed off because Texas is coming into the SEC. People all over the nation are talking about, oh, well, Texas doesn't know about the SEC. They don't have to worry about these. They're not playing Kansas every weekend. They're not playing the best talent. Now they got to play the best talent every year. And I think Sark built that speech off of just, having respect for the SEC, but also wanting it, wanting the respect. And again, like I stated earlier, he wants to win. So that was something that stood out to me the most. Another thing that kind of stood out to me was, just him being open and honest about how he's going to deal with receivers. He mentioned it. He's like, all my guys are gone from last year. They're not here, with the without John, Jonte Cook and other a couple others. But he's saying, like, hey, listen, I got a whole new wide receiver group. I need them to hit the ground running. We're going to utilize early games. We're going to utilize games and getting a bunch of receivers in. We're not just going to have a set group of wide receivers. We got to get Quinn and these receivers acclimated to, the SEC. And I respect it. It was very candid. Most of the time a coach could just brush that off and be like, I'm confident in Quinn. I'm confident in receivers, and I'm confident in our I'm confident in our preparation. But he was being very honest and said, hey, listen, this is something that we have to work on. This is something that we're going to be working on throughout the season. And I respect that a lot. I respect that because most coaches wouldn't say that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And again, it goes back to saying how much he believes in this team. he even goes as deep as calling out Ryan Wingo as a guy that's out in the wide receiver room this year.
Yep.
And it just goes to show like he's going to be the best players, but he also now believes I've got a lot of best players I can play. Right. I don't only have to rely on, getting the ball to A.D. Mitchell and getting the ball to Xavier Worthy.
Right.
One other thing he does mention is Quinn Ewers and how Quinn he exudes confidence this year, which is something he didn't do in his last 2 years.
Yeah,
you guys, the third year peak in Sark systems is a real thing, and Steven, I'm curious to hear what your opinion is on Quinn heading into year 3. We've seen third year quarterbacks under Sark perform very, very well in the third year of the system under Sark. What are your expectations, or what do you hope to see from Quinn going into this season?
Yeah, so this is something I'm going to be making a bunch of content on in the next few weeks as we get ready for the season, because this is I'm honestly the Quinn Ewers development and conversation in the year 3 aspect is everything why I'm optimistic about this team. I have my concerns and questions and all those things, but everything I'm optimistic about comes from that third year in this system. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks going back to USC, right?
Yeah.
When they've just been in that room for 3 years, whether they were a redshirt sophomore or junior or what have you. I mean, he got Cody Kessler, 3rd round pick. He got Jake Locker, top 10 pick, right? I mean, look at this.
Pick 8, man. Jake Locker. I remember that. Jake Locker was pick 8.
I mean, you look at after Locker, he had Keith Price, right? And the stuff he did with Keith Price. Like these guys, their third year in. And so that's why the question about the receivers is interesting, and I see Isaac commenting about the rotation, which is something I'm definitely going to be paying attention to. But I've said this since Quinn has gotten here. When do you take ownership of the offense as a quarterback? When is this your offense? Mac Jones took ownership of the offense. Tua Tagovailoa took ownership of the offense when they were under Sark's tutelage. Yes, he's my coach. He's calling the plays. But when I'm at the line of scrimmage, I'm the general. And I have the advantage of having helmet comms, by the way.
I was going to say, now he's got that, right? Yep.
Right. So the thing is, though, for Quinn, it's also his contract season. So is Kelvin Banks and a few other guys. But it's contract season now for Quinn. It's time. We've seen the physical tools. We've seen the physical flashes. We've seen him develop, right, physically and being able to do more on the field. Now it's, hey, this is my football team. This is my offense. This is year 3 of what is supposed to happen under the tutelage of Sark, and also in my preparation to go to the NFL. So that is why when you look at Quinn, he's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in this conference now, right? I mean, if we go down the list and then let's also consider how many starting quarterbacks have also had the same relationship with their coach. Because yes, Jalen Milroe is here, and if you want to say Jalen Milroe is the top quarterback in the SEC, I won't fight you on that. He's an amazing offensive weapon, but he's having to learn a brand new system and offense. Granted, Kalen DeBoer is going to be an amazing guy. He's an amazing coach. Kudos, right? But it's new.
Yeah.
There's a consistency with Quinn and Sark. And, oh, by the way, you have somebody that will take ownership of the offense sitting right behind him, pushing him in that room, which he talks about, right? Their quarterback room. Quinn said something that I've been saying for years about Sark's quarterback training and room. It's really a high level course. Quinn uses the term, he said, it's like getting a PhD in quarterbacking. That's what he said. It's like I'm in a PhD level course. And I've said that for years. And what people don't understand, I'm like, that's why guys like Malik Murphy stayed in the program a little bit longer, because it's more valuable being in the room, even if I don't play, getting this tutelage. so that when I do move on, I can pick up any other system.
Yep.
Right.
I'm ready. I mean, we've seen guys. Sark has gotten guys drafted that didn't even play in that room.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
Wow.
I mean, so now that's why I'm high on year 3. But I have more coming, in detail on that.
Very curious to hear what you say on that. Obviously, myself specifically, I think Quinn's going to have a phenomenal year. I think this is the year he puts it all together. 3rd year in the system. He walks around with the swag, I guess you can say, for how calm he is. He's not the boisterous, yell it all out guy. Obviously did a little bit more this year, being on the cover of College Football 25, getting a little bit more like public exposure, I guess you could say. But when he speaks differently. Like the way he speaks is a little bit different this year. He in himself, you can tell there is a lot of confidence in who he is and what his ability to do as a quarterback is going to be. I really, really, really hope, and Victor just says it, right? Quinn needs to stay healthy though, and that is the one thing that concerns me about Quinn. He hasn't played a full season of football since his junior year at South Lake Girl.
Yeah.
And that is the one concern I would have for Quinn is he going to be able to stay healthy? Because, and Steven, maybe this is something you talk about on your show. I'm the believer that if Quinn doesn't stay healthy this year, and you give that guy behind him an opportunity, I don't think that's good for Quinn. I don't know if that's something he can come back from.
Corey's comment is the next thing I'm going to say. Everything's tied together for Quinn. It's one word: it's consistency. Yep. That's why the footwork thing is right there, right? Part of that is, some of the injuries that Quinn has taken are avoidable, right? If you don't leave your feet, right? Yep. Sliding versus diving, they've had that conversation in media day, but it boils down to consistency, because these are things where he has shown what it looks like when he does have proper footwork, when he does have proper discernment when he's running the ball, whether to dive or slide, because you have to have discernment when you have the ball at all times, but especially once you cross the line of scrimmage. With Quinn, it's consistency with everything, and it starts with his feet. If when his feet are fine and it's married and he's active, right? He doesn't have, because to me, Quinn is he has lazy feet sometimes. That's just what I see. I'm not an NFL scout or anything like that. I know they love the arm talent. It's justified. Anybody that can throw, and Tim knows this, anybody that can throw to the opposite hash 40 yards on an out route, that's special.
You're going to get drafted because of that.
Right.
It's the hardest throw in sports.
It's just like if you're a culinary chef, right? If we're in a competition, if I decide to prepare a harder, more challenging meal or take on a more challenging protein, people are going to think that's the level of chef or pit master that I am. That's the type of stuff that Quinn has the ability. But week over week over week, that kid that I saw in Tuscaloosa that was a dog, I need to see that kid have all 12 weeks.
Completely.
You know what I'm saying?
Consistently, yeah.
That's the only difference between what he's shown and, like, I got that from Bryce at Bama every single week. I got that from Tua every single week. I got that from Mac every single week. Last year, I mean, look, it was an awesome season, 12-2. Quinn has a great record, starting record as a all that. But how many games? I mean, let's be honest, right? Last year, where it's like, oh man, we a little sluggish, or we a little slow start.
Came out slow.
We need Quinn to wake up.
Yeah,
that's now we need to graduate to consistency beyond that. That's where I'm at.
Steven, let me ask you.
I don't want to ignore this because I know this got us in trouble last time. $2 super chat from Quentin.
What's up, Quentin?
25 God. F with me if you dare. Quentin, I am not the god at College Football 25. I'll tell you that right now. But my guy Tim's on the Xbox. He definitely thinks he can give a lot of people a run for his money. So
I've been giving people hell, man.
He's been handing people L's. So Quentin, if you want to hook it up with Tim Wayne and see if what you got, you can hit him up and you can get that going. But back to the conversation. I just wanted to pull that out. But Tim, go ahead and say what you were about to say.
Steven, do you think and Harish, you can answer this as well. Do you think with going into the SEC and not having your traditional Big 12 opponents, do you think this puts or gives not necessarily a chip for Quinn, but it hypes him up to want to play better instead of, because I do feel like within the time that Quinn has been at Texas, at times I feel like he has played down to the competition. The year that TCU went to the national championship, I definitely felt like he played down to that TCU team. They weren't that great. They weren't having a great game. The Texas defense did all that they could to keep them into that game. I don't think Quinn kept them in. I don't think Quinn, I think Quinn could have done it better
offensively in that game.
Yeah.
Johnny Barron had the only touchdown in that game. To answer your question, though, that's the thing where he needs to put that to bed.
Right.
Last year coming into the season, and I was front and center with this narrative of I had questions about him as an athlete, of him moving, just period, because there were too many times where somebody got near him and he would just fall down or whatever. And after the first couple games last year, he really made a marked improvement outside the pocket. He had some improvised touchdowns, off script stuff. He had multiple 30-yard run touchdowns. The Baylor game, Kansas, all these games where he's starting to run out and be more of an athlete and be more decisive.
Right.
And before the season, I'm questioning if that was there. Now, to your point, consistency and the level of competition. He knows his footwork needs to be on point when he's playing Bama. He doesn't have time to be lazy. But if I'm an NFL guy, if my franchise quarterback, I can't have he plays down to competition in my franchise. That's something he needs to put to bed and say, hey, that was me at 19, 20 years old. But now as a 21, 22-year-old, no, I understand. It's all business every single week, every single time I step out on that football field.
Yeah.
Because again, Harish already said it. There's a guy behind him where that will not be a concern.
Right.
Period. I need to see it from you because there's these NFL people love Quinn. They love the tape.
Right.
You can listen to them. But what we have, the reason why Texas fans, it's not really matching the hype. It's the consistency. That's all it is.
Yeah.
We've seen really, really good parts of Quinn, but we've also seen really, really, really bad parts of Quinn. And specifically it happened twice last year, and coincidentally, it's the two games that we played that we lost, right? The Oklahoma game, he was terrible in the first half, indecisive, turning the ball over, making off balance throws that he was just doing weird things. And then he brought the team back, and it was too little too late.
He wasn't trusting his mechanics, man. He wasn't trusting what he was taught.
Right.
To be fair, hold on. To be fair, we took the lead 30-27 with a minute to go.
No,
I'm sorry.
It's
not too little too late. We took the lead. My defense, unfortunately, gave up everything.
Oh my God!
Listen, I don't want to talk about that because the defense is a whole nother story that I don't even want to get into because I might have a heart attack.
Backed on 10 yards on. Oh my God!
I don't even want to talk about specifically that secondary. It irked the hell out of me. But it's the starts, it's the lack of footwork, and Corey called it out again. It's just the loss of just basic fundamental things, trusting what he's been taught, and doing that throughout. It's almost like he needed to go out and start for him to be like, oh, Quinn, remember you have to set your feet when you make that throw. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. And then I'll go do it in like the third quarter. Right.
The OU game, Harish, is a perfect example, though. I'm glad you brought that up because this needs to be a learning opportunity. It was the best and worst of Quinn all in one afternoon because he started. He threw a pick right off the bat. We ran double slant concept, read it wrong, threw the pick. He threw another pick right later in the half, and then he had the fumble. But in that same game, he also completed 23 passes in a row, right?
Yeah,
and set a record.
excellent.
Yeah, I think he only dropped. There was only like 7 or 8 drop passes in the game after that.
I mean, there were throws that the throw Bubba made out of his own end zone to AD Mitchell on a 7 route.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
That's a big boy throw.
Really nice throws. But the problem, it's not the fact that he got back on script. It's like when he got out of it, he got out of it in big ways. 3 interceptions, the fumble. That's the type of stuff. It's not that if he would have just like thrown a bunch of incompletions and he was just off and then went on to do that, I don't think that would have been as big of a deal. They would have been like, oh, that sucks. But he figured it out, finished his last 23 completions at 82%. But then it's the fact that the results of his decision-making in those inaccurate throws that he had in the first half and what they ended up being, which essentially at the end of the day are points to cost him the game, right? Minus the last drive, that's on the defense. But up until that point, those mistakes, is the difference between those guys doing well and not doing well and coming out on the right side of the scoreboard. And then we saw a lot of it in the national semifinal. It's just a lot of inconsistencies in the throws that he's making. It's almost like he just doesn't try. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh, shoot. If I don't try now, coach is going to be really pissed. And Sark is be like, all right, man, time to try. Let's do it. Oh, yeah. Cool, coach. Got it. And then you
think he turns it on and flips it on whenever he wants to?
Which that he might think exists, but I don't think really exists in my mind. But
there's some comments here in the chat. And Robert Muhammad 19, right? And I think you're referring to the age thing. And somebody else referred to this earlier.
Yep.
Quinn was young. And so there has to be grace for him. Some guys do mature early. Like Bryce Young is unique in that sense where he was an adult the moment he stepped on the football field full time. But most guys do need multiple years of maturity, right? Just maturing. I do see that with Quinn, no question. And I think a lot of the things we're talking about are solved with him just getting older and wiser. Yeah. And, these are just the natural, the natural, progression of a player. Whereas somebody like Arch is getting experience where he can be more of that Jordan Love off the bench for the Packers, right? Where your mistakes are my lessons that I don't have to go in and relearn or whatever, right? And so I think with Quinn, I've always held this, and this is why the NFL is so high on him. It's the age thing. And so when you think about that, as long as you don't see those bad habits when you're the oldest guy on the field, that's when I got concerns. You know what I'm saying? Because he was playing football. Like Michael Penix was 46 years old.
He's been out there for a long time, man.
We didn't get to see the Michael Penix that was also 19 years old.
We didn't get to see. I did watch him at Indiana, and he gave up the ball a lot, but he also was very dynamic. And he could do some things that just other kids and other quarterbacks in that league just couldn't do. And I think with him ending up at Washington was just a perfect storm, and it really paid off for him. Of course, they got to a national championship and they didn't win it, but just within a short period of time of what Washington did with him was pretty amazing. Actually,
I think for Michael Penix though, right? All three of us were fortunate to see young Michael Penix, and he was electric, right? Before he tore both of those, especially he was really good then before the second ACL tear. That was the year he was final year at Indiana, and he was awesome. Unreal.
He was giving people a lot of problems. Ohio State.
I think that's where his athleticism actually kind of helped him as he kind of came along as a quarterback.
Yep.
And then he goes to Washington. Year one under Kalen DeBoer kind of grows. By last year, he had two things going for him. Not only is it year two in Kalen DeBoer's system and under Kalen DeBoer, it's also like his 95th year as a quarterback in college. And so when you combine those two things,
it's a perfect storm, man.
Yeah, Quinn's not only his third year under Sark, it's his fourth year in college football in general.
Right.
And I think those two things, at this point, one of two things is going to happen. It's going to click, or you're just not good enough, right? You were just not the quarterback that you thought you were going to be.
Right.
And then, you just let things play out. So obviously, Quinn, it was a big area of topic here. I'm just going through some of the comments here. And I think one thing was, and you kind of touched on it, Steve, right? Do you think the ability or the lack of ability for Quinn to read a defense impacts any of his just footwork or mechanics?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. But I don't think he's below average reading the defense. Let me clarify those two things too. Also, our offense, we require the quarterback again. It's not one of those offenses where half these offenses, the coaches are telling people where to throw the ball. Let's be real.
Yeah.
They're not reading shit. It's just, hey, you
read.
And so he's actually having to do progression. And Sark's progressions are top-down progressions, right? Deep to low to high to check down. And yeah, the footwork and all those things married along. But Quinn's ability to read defense has improved. I know Marlon and I we've debated. Marlon and I will he's going to text me after this. Yeah. We've debated about this, and it's to be seen, to your point, Marlon. But one thing I wanted to mention, because somebody mentioned about Sark. Texas, we haven't had, even Sam Ehlinger, when he was here for forever, we changed up play callers. We changed up, who was in his ear. It wasn't always Tim Beck. This is truly Sark Quinn. Like, there's no other, we have AJ Milwee in there as well, who does a great job with everybody in the room. But in terms of the play calling and whatnot, like he said, Sark, there's been times where I've put some of this on Sark in terms of, hey, you're not calling the game to the strengths of your player where we're at right now. I think over time, that time in matters. And you also can make adjustments quicker. If you come out, look, there's going to be times, the SEC is, like y'all said, this is the best conference. We are going to have a week where we come out and our game plan wasn't it. And you'll know right away. Somebody set a trap for us or something. But when you have that type of relationship, you can pick way quicker than somebody else that's in their first year that's limited with what they're able to do and doesn't have that relationship with their coach.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree 1,000%.
Yeah. I really agree with that. All right, gentlemen. I know we're running a little over time. Is there anything else that you guys thought stuck out this week that you guys want to kind of talk through real quick?
There's only. Go ahead, Steven.
I had two things.
Go for it.
Number one, Lane Kiffin today. Going after Paul Finebaum.
Lane Kiffin, man. Ooh.
Lane Kiffin, man.
Kiffin.
Jeez. So that was fun. That was. That's another coach, right? Where Ole Miss expectations, because this is going to lead me into the second thing, but Ole Miss coming off, like, he's finally had that consistent year, and I have my questions about Ole Miss because of Lane and his maturity and whatnot. But he's like, dude, I've been on a journey as well, right? And I've been through some hardships, and a lot of it, sometimes self-inflicted. Obviously, he just lost his father, the great Monty Kiffin. But this is an Ole Miss team right now that he's also decided to stay. People have been reaching out to Lane, trying to pluck him from there. And now he's built it up. And that leads me into the second thing, which is I don't think people are really understanding what this 12-team playoff is going to do to how we perceive the regular season. I really think it's going to be more of like an NFL, NBA type mindset of like you're paying attention to seeding, but you're not really being punished for if you take a bad L or whatever, because it's like, it's just as long as we make the playoffs, right? As long as we get in there,
that's right.
Right, we got a chance, because it's going to turn into playoffs or bust, just in general as the expectation for a conference. And that's why my thing is this. I know the 10.5 number crazy number for the first year in the conference. If Texas goes 11-1 or 10-2, outstanding. But we need to beat OU. Number one, I'm tired.
Look. Yeah, I hate
it. I don't think it's been prioritized enough from a recruiting standpoint, from what the rivalry means. That 8-1 last year, when I look at that, or 9 and whatever we finished in the conference, that and one stings, right?
Yeah.
And the manner in which you lose to them. I mean, we need to beat OU this year and beat our rivals, and also because the rest of it is going to be, did you make the playoffs and do you have a favorable seed to go and win a national championship? That's really what it's going to be, regardless of what the record is, regardless of what happens in the Michigan game. But I need to beat OU, and I want to see us having, the ability to be in position to make a run.
I would agree with that. I think we're talking about expectations. I would agree that obviously making the playoff is something that we need to do. I don't think we have to win the SEC. I would like to see us in the SEC title game. I just want to see us go up and compete against these guys, right?
Yep.
Specifically, the game that I'm really circling, quite honestly, is that Arkansas game. How did they handle going back to Fayetteville, which will probably be a night game again, in a game 2 years ago that they basically ran you out of their field and then essentially didn't win another game all the rest of the season, right? But that for that one night, for those 3 hours, that is what I will remember for a long time. I know exactly where I was when that game happened. I know exactly what I was doing when that game was happening. It was not a lot of cheering and a lot of being impressed. It was a lot of crying. It was a lot of what in the hell are we doing? And it started a lot of doubt with the Sark regime, right? And that was year 2. That game in Fayetteville, I think, is probably, I get College Station is probably the most hyped game on the schedule. I honestly feel like that Fayetteville game is going to be probably, if not the second most, the most important game on the schedule for me.
I agree with that.
The
A&M, and a lot of people are going to jump on the A&M thing. Well, obviously that's the A&M game is the most hyped game and everything. But no, you're right, Harish, because the Fayetteville game, I love the way you put that, eloquently put by you, of it's full circle for Sark and this program, right? Because those who are familiar with my channel, we call that place Vietnam because it was Fright Night.
It was
it was Fright Night.
And it was scary.
And look, there were some brothers on the field that were shook. Okay, let's just call a spade. Not everybody, but there were some brothers on the field that they didn't want to be in that environment anymore. And I haven't seen looks like that on our faces since, so that's a good thing, right? Like at least now when we go somewhere, it's like we might get beat, but we ain't scared, right? Like there's that. The A&M thing, though, I also look at it this way: it's the last game of the season. And there's gonna be playoff ramifications, potentially conference title ramifications. I do think some of these SEC games, these wars that are going to be happening in November, it's going to be a battle of who has the most people left. Because
the most healthy,
I mean, these games, I say it all the time. When you go to war against it, when I say war, I'm saying Texas OU last year. People were lost in that game, right?
Yep.
On both sides. When Texas played Bama, people got hurt. It's when you're playing a game of that intensity, we're going to lose people in Texas, Georgia. Georgia's going to lose people in that game.
Absolutely.
So at some point, it's going to come down to how many healthy people do both sides have, and that's why I'm putting the A&M game in its own little place on the side. That Arkansas game, we should be healthy, or relatively healthy.
Yeah.
So to your point, those type of games is a good litmus test.
It's literally comes down to do you remember the Alamo, and are you ready to avenge the Alamo? Essentially, right? So that's kind of what, and I think that's really why that particular game sticks out to me for that specific reason. Like you said, it's a full circle moment. Corey says game day in Fayetteville. It's day game in Fayetteville. Listen, I don't care if it's a morning game in Fayetteville. I'm terrified, and I'm concerned about going there, but I shouldn't be. Isaac is excited to see Jordan Washington get some meaningful playing time as well. That's the tight end you were talking about earlier, Tim. And Ryan Wing, Texas's prodigy. I'm getting very, very excited. We talked about this when guys on the team, especially older guys, are talking about younger guys or new guys. That means this is somebody. That's the guy.
Special brewing, man. Something special brewing.
That's something you got to pay attention to. And there's a lot of talk. So we talked about this earlier with Silas Bolden, and then now Ryan Wingo is another guy. A lot of guys are talking about, and definitely something we need to keep an eye on. A&M game for recruiting reasons as well. Yeah, Mike Elko was asked about this earlier. Yeah, how does Texas and OU coming into the conference impact recruiting? Obviously, like he says, it doesn't impact recruiting at all. We've been recruiting against them for a while. But It's a little bit different now, right? You've been recruiting against them for a while, but they also haven't been in the same conference as you, and you've been recruiting against them. So I think that does bring a whole new element to it. And Isaac says, Georgia, Michigan, OU are my only concerns this year.
Not mine.
I've got a little bit more than that.
More. I got more.
Michigan. I'm curious.
Isaac's confident. Can I say one other thing real quick? Regarding so this goes into the Michigan thing because we're going to Ann Arbor. We're going to be playing in that environment. One of the reasons why Vince Young is held in the esteem that he's held at Texas, and this is beyond the 30-2 as a starter, the national championship, him running for 1,000 yards, multiple seasons, all that. It was the fact that he would go into a road environment and handle that like a G. Like, I remember a young Vince Young, 2004. They went into Fayetteville. It was him, and it was that play that the legendary play with the late Cedric Benson. Really, really tough, super physical game.
Yep.
But if you look in their eyes, he was there to fight. He was there to there was no fear. It was embracing the hate in the crowd. When you look at Vince Young in 2005 against that Ohio State team in the shoe against AJ Hawk and them boys, right? Remember,
brutal.
I mean, you look at us in the all white, and it's like, wow, we are here on Mars, and there's no help coming. But but the look in his eyes. And so when you look at Quinn at Tuscaloosa last year and the confidence and the poise, and it's like, yo, I don't care if there's no Texas people here or not. We're fine. We're fine in this environment. That's what we were completely missing in 2021 when like I said, it became Fright Night. So that's another reason why guys like Vince, Colt McCoy did it as well. In hostile environments where they just said, calm down, we're good. We got this.
That win in Alabama, I think, is a turning point in that confidence for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's just moments. It's not even like how you play in games like that. It's not about how you play beginning to end. It's how you play in certain moments of those games where you have that type of confidence, right? The scoring as soon as they scored, and he comes right down and he scores right on that next drive. Getting the second over the top ball over to 80 Mitchell. Like, it's plays like that. It's about moments that you have in games like that kind of rubs off that confidence.
Right.
Future talks about view Kentucky more as a talented state. Can't let them get. Is that game in Lexington, or is that here?
It's here in Austin. That's the game that I'm the most concerned about. One of those games that I'm concerned about because of the simple fact that it is before A&M, right? And you could be overlooking Kentucky and thinking, well, we got to battle it out. And let's say Texas is undefeated, right? Let's say that they do go undefeated or they got one loss and they overlook Kentucky. I think Kentucky could come in here and pop you in the mouth, and now you're down, 10 at the half, and you're trying to fight and claw your way back and having to overextend, and then go into A&M, not necessarily wounded, but exuding more than what you needed to in the Kansas and in the Kentucky game, because you didn't take care of business from start to finish. That's what I'm worried about. That's what sticks out to me. You can't go in here and just overlook these games or come in here, half-assing because it's Kentucky. They're not really winning any games or anything like that. We got a big game this week that we need to get to. No. You get in, you take care of business from jump, and then worry about the game once the whistle's blown. It can't be anymore the slow starts and the slow starts, and then we turn it on in the second half, or the second half, we start to do things that we don't normally do, or we don't stick to the formula. What we've been doing has been working, and we move away from it. You can't do that. That falls on coaching, and that falls on the players, right? That maybe the leadership, Sark talks about the leaders that have come, and how many leaders he's had, within the last couple of years, and now how he's got more than what he's ever had. Well, in some cases, and I understand, you want to look to your head coach and for everything, especially in the heat of battle. But sometimes you got to let your leaders got to step up and be like, hey, listen, this ain't working. We need to go back to what we were doing, or hey, we need to go in a different direction. And hopefully that's hopefully where they're getting to.
I have a question for you. So, yes. 2022, we had the whole issue with Sark of we were jumping on everybody, right? First half, our point differential was crazy. We had great opening game plans. We were able to get out on early leads, double-digit leads, and then we had trouble closing. 2023 kind of flipped, right, early in the season. But I felt like the team that we had at the beginning of the season that was having those troubles, and even midway through, once Quinn came back from injury and got settled, I felt like Tech and on, we didn't really have those challenges anymore. Like, we started playing a complete 4 quarters. Do you think that's something that can potentially materialize into this season, where they are much more cognizant of we need to play complete games? Like, we can't have these back and forth, because they did get there. They grew in the season.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So that doesn't go to me. That has nothing to do with coaches at that point. This is all players, right? This is your veteran players coming in and say, listen, we do this way. We're not half-assing anything. So we're not letting our feet off the gas. You're gonna get your blocks. You're gonna make your reads. You're gonna sit in the holes. You have to let your you have to let your team and your veteran players at that point make those statements, right? You want to say, hey, if I can't look to my coach, or if I can't look to the assistant coaches, then I need to be able to look to somebody. Also, that there goes for, when you have a veteran team and you have some older players in there, they're the ones that can tell you, hey, get your head out of your ass. You don't want to hear from your coaches all the time, because if you hear from the coaches, depending on the player, how some of these players are nowadays, they don't want to hear that from their coaches. So if you would rather hear from your brother on the field, be like, hey man, dog, get your head out your butt, dog. You gotta straighten up. You know what I'm saying? You would rather hear that right then and there and get that immediate feedback than having to go on the sidelines, because that turns into a whole different thing. That there comes division and things like that. Attitudes and egos start to get into play. If you're everybody that's there, that's been there, can hold the team accountable, they'll be fine. I don't think that has been, at the beginning of Sark's, reign. I don't think that was a thing. I think there was a lot of division. Of course, him coming in with a new team, but I don't think that those veteran guys that were there and getting ready to leave were holding guys accountable on the team. I think that's changed now. I think we've seen that, like you mentioned, after that Tech game, things kind of smoothed out. Of course, it was some some questionable play calling, but for the most part, things kind of smoothed out. And I think they can continue. That leadership is so important, man. That, you know, whether it's Quinn, whether it's Banks, whether, you know, whoever it is, you know, they have to rein it in with the players and the young guys. That's the only way that things are going to continue to move on and continue to stay its course like they've had last year.
One of the things that's interesting, and Stark mentioned this, is and he kind of said it as in his opening statement, the standard is the standard at this point.
Right.
That's something that's very important, and that goes to the leadership, right? That goes to what Tim was saying, is this is no longer, Stark always talks about this, how like his first year, maybe a little bit, he had to force guys to do things because that's what he needed them to do. He's no longer having to do that. And now you're getting to a point of, it's like, listen, you want me to tell you this, because if you have to have a coach tell you this, it might not go well for you, right?
No. You might be sitting down on a bench.
Important to me, but it is probably just in your best interest that I tell you it this way, because you probably don't want to hear it any other way.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, I think that's another piece to it is, and I think that's why it's important. Yeah, Sark never blames anybody else. Blah 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 blah. I get that, and you know, you've talked about that a lot. He never threw anybody else under the bus, but now he doesn't even have to worry about that. Because these guys know the standard, and so that is the standard. And so I think that's where that whole mentality of these are my guys now comes from. When I mentioned that earlier, they know what it is, and it's now up to them to continue to drag that to keep. But now you just have to repeat that a multitude amount of times, which is very, very hard to do year over year. So, what else you guys got that you guys want to touch on?
I just want to touch on this. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
There's one thing that I want to touch on that really stood out to me, and I'm glad that not necessarily multiple coaches have said it, but the person that stuck out to me the most was Kirby Smart. And that was the question that all of the coaches got was, hey, what do you feel about the expansion of the 12-team playoff, and what are your goals to get to the 12-team playoff? The one thing that, I mean, most of the coaches said it, but where I felt it the most is with Kirby. And Kirby said this, and I'm paraphrasing. He basically said, hey, listen, I'm not worried about the Big 12. I'm not worried about the playoff, right? The playoff will be there. What I'm worried about is winning the SEC championship, because the SEC championship is just as hard as winning as a national championship. And that to me stood out, because for me, I feel like we're kind of getting away from the importance of a conference championship, and that is wrong. Every football team has a goal, right? And we need to keep it that way, right? The most of the time, and the way things go, win your conference championship, beat your rivals, get into the postseason. That's how it should be. And I appreciate Kirby for getting out there and sticking up for the SEC championship, because what I'm afraid of is I don't want people to take off their conference championship because they know they're going to get into the playoff. I don't want that to happen. And that is something that could potentially happen, where teams are sitting their players out in a conference championship game knowing that they're going to be able to get into a playoff spot. And that's not what I want to happen. So I'm so glad that Kirby Smart did not downplay the SEC championship, and yet instead he boosted it, because it is tough. Like, these teams are probably going to see each other. Like, let's take Texas and Georgia for an example. Hypothetically speaking, Texas and Georgia play in September. Then they backdoor and they play again in an SEC championship, right? And then if they both make the playoff, let's say Georgia only lost to Texas twice. I think they're still going to get in if they're steamrolling all these other teams except Texas. I think that they deserve to get in there, right? In a playoff spot. So that is a potential third time that these two teams would play. That's unheard of. That doesn't happen. And for it to possibly happen in a season is crazy. And I think I'm just so glad that he just didn't downplay that. Like, listen, winning the SEC is hard. And to not downplay that is so big, because I think in the future, I think the media is going to start to downplay it because of how big this playoff schedule and these playoff spots are, where it's kind of like, oh, just like in March Madness, you don't win your Big 12 tournament, cool. Do you get into the Big 12 into the big dance? Do you get to the NCAA tournament where you got a chance? I don't want them to turn football into that.
They want both, Tim.
I know,
they want both.
But Steven, you can't have both, man. You can't.
Because they see how big the tournament is. They see how big March Madness is. And they want to have that. Plus, they want to have the pageantry and the regular season. I'm with you. That was very well said, Tim, in terms of that's the intent of college football.
Right.
I mean, we grew up as college football fans before the computers, when people would just like write down on a piece of paper who the national championship was. like you played your games, you went to your bowl, and then whoever was the champion was the champion. Like, literally, that's how it was.
Yeah.
They want to have that success, though, and they want those TV dollars of that playoff. And with those dollars comes accountability to making the playoffs for the schools. And to me, this is what I do think is going to happen, though. These coaches are going to tie their fate of whether I'm hired or fired, or whether I'm fired or I get another year by, did I make the playoffs or not? Like, even if you underperformed, even if you came into the season number 1, but you snuck in the 11th spot, I still get to keep my job because I made the playoffs.
I got in. No, man, you placed third in your conference, man.
Yeah. The other piece of it is being in the SEC. The importance of the SEC championship is probably placed higher within the conference because of the result of winning that conference, right? I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm willing to bet 9 times out of 10, if you win the SEC, you're going to be either a 1 seed or a 2 seed.
Yeah, like somebody said here, Chris said you're going to get the bye.
Yeah,
so.
and it's all, and getting the bye is important. But even in those, if you're a 3 or a 4 seed, you run the risk of hitting that 5 seed before you get to at least the semis, right? And again, it goes to what you were talking about earlier, Steve. It's all about seeding at that point. So getting a 1 or 2 seed and saying, "Oh wow, I can avoid 5 seed Texas until maybe at least the championship game or the semifinal game, right? Or I can avoid an 8 seed Ole Miss team because I'm a 2 seed, right? I'm just making these numbers up, but avoiding these teams, possibly seeing them for a second or third time in a season when you've already beaten them. These coaches and players know what it's all about. This whole stuff about like, certain rivalries not mattering. That's all just us in the media, but us as podcasters just to have a joke and something to laugh about. And then also just the media just to have something to talk about. Yes, on the show we had mentioned Texas OU doesn't matter because you can get into the playoff. Yes, that is actually rightfully true. But it does matter because the seeding, right? Losing to OU and not getting in the SEC title game could be the difference between a 5 seed or 2 seed potentially. And that is important to the coaches and the players.
Right.
The Kirby, to Tim's point though, Kirby was cooking this week. He called out Dan Lanning. I mean, we all know what.
We need to talk about that.
We had the whole situation where DeCorian Moore selected Oregon, and everybody went up, everybody threw everybody for a loop, and it was a big conversation in the Texas fan base. And then behind the scenes, I was kind of like, Dan Lanning got that war chest with Phil Knight.
Yep.
And for Kirby Smart to just outright say it was strategic. Number one, to talk to his people, right? Of this is what I'm dealing with. This man is now unchecked with the open Nike war chest that he has access to. And he put out the narrative like he's just able to buy and get whatever he wants. And so I thought that was a very big deal, especially a cross-conference shot to his former defensive coordinator, somebody that was mentored under Kirby Smart, and all in the love of the game. But that's the reality of the situation, right? And he was direct, like Lane was. There was no sneak dissing.
Yeah,
he called that man out by name. So,
spoken like a true Padawan, man. Listen, he pulled a Nick Saban. He said, "This is what I gotta deal with, dog." You know what I'm saying? It is what it is, man.
This whole NIL thing, this is still phase one of NIL to me, right? This is still going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm interested to see what Kirby's remarks turn into within the conference, but also for Kirby himself and for Georgia themselves, what is Texas going to do? I think there's a lot of interesting things around Texas. Like these guys, and Tim has talked about it before, Oregon just keeps coming to your damn state and taking all your best talent.
It pisses me off so much.
And it's a really annoying thing. I'll just to keep it PG. It's really annoying to see, especially when you're Texas. But we have all these. We have unlimited resources, but do we have as unlimited resourcing as Phil Knight? I don't know. Maybe we do, but I don't think they want to use it. And Phil Knight has obviously a different motivation to do so. So it'll be interesting to see how NIL continues to grow as it gets into different phases. But Tim probably lost his internet thing. There's a comment about Nick Saban and that whole thing. Nick Saban obviously throwing his own dust to Don. He's just sitting on the sideline, just throwing gasoline to fire at this point. There's a couple of things Nick Saban said, since we're talking about other things, that got a couple guys going. Obviously picks Texas and Georgia to be in the SEC title game. His former player talks about, hey, Coach Saban always told us to not worry about what other people were saying. But now, he's essentially saying, don't worry about the guys that are sitting on the sidelines and talking about you. So I'm not going to worry about some guy that's playing golf for the rest of his life talking about us.
That was a great rebuttal. Do you also think that Nick Saban, part of him, so I think it's two parts with Saban. I think Saban's also, hey, I'm new to the media right now. I'm not just going to be that guy that just goes and picks my former school. That's like low-hanging fruit, right? Unless it was just blatantly obvious. I also think there's a part of Nick Saban, because all coaches have giant egos as well. It's part of what makes them great. I think there's a part of Nick Saban that's like, y'all ain't gonna do what y'all gonna miss me too. Right. Last year, everybody said I was dead, right? Everybody said you're cooked, all this other stuff, and all he went and did is win the SEC.
Yep.
When everybody counted Nick out. And so I think there's a part, not all of it, but I think there's a part of Nick Saban that also did that, because he's like, nah, Bama's, you lost the GOAT. You should take a dip.
Yourself. And you have to prove to me that you are the same program and you will still perform the same way after I leave.
I want to say one thing and then we can move on. I really think that Nick Saban is about to do some of the most remarkable things that we've ever seen before. As far as being a member of the media, he's going to generate so much attention because he is, is the greatest, football coach in college football history. And so he's gonna bring that pull. What I know for a fact is gonna happen. I don't have no inside sources. This is just gut. Nick Saban is going to be in a role just as similar as Gary Patterson, where he can get in there, he can contribute, you can get his knowledge, and he doesn't have to deal with the kids in the NIL, and he can still go play golf and still be on TV by 2 o'clock playing golf. That is the role that Nick Saban is going to be. He's going to be a part-time, I don't want to call him a chancellor, but a part-time assistant or they'll make up some type of position for him. Well, he will go in, they'll say, this is what we have. He will give his knowledge. They can ask him questions. He will be open, and then he gets to chill on Saturday. And instead of being on the sideline stressing out and having to talk to these parents about NIL deals, he gets to go and be on ESPN and travel the country and chill out with his wife. That is what Nick Saban is getting ready to do. If Alabama wins a title, Nick Saban is going to be a part of it, and he will get another ring. Maybe not as a head coach, but a staff member. That is exactly what Nick Saban is doing. And it's so,
for those who have seen The Godfather Part 1, he's basically gone into the consigliere role that Vito took when he was older after he had been shot. Right? But he was still, his wisdom was still being immersed in the family. You know, Nick is gonna move. I see the vision, Tim. I see the vision, more of that consigliere for the Alabama family.
Why not? They're still gonna, he'll still get paid. He'll be on the staff. He will be on the staff, but he won't have to deal with anything. He won't be on the coaching staff.
No, he's not day to day.
He's not day to day. It's just basically, hey, we're gonna keep you on staff. If we need you, we're gonna call you.
It's like the CEO who's run the company for 20 years. He's gotten his money worth. He's done a good job. You know what, guys? I'm going to retire. I'm just going to go sit on the board and do. That's basically what Nick Saban's about to do.
Exactly. And I don't think they're going to announce it just now because it is exciting to have Nick Saban at ESPN. I'm not going to lie. Sitting there watching Nick Saban talk to Pat McAfee, which I think Nick Saban is going to replace Coach. I think he's going to replace Lee Corso. And I think that's what we're looking forward to. I think that's what we're gearing up to as, Lee's getting older. The man's in his 90s, and I know he still wants to do it, but I think just over time, his body just can't handle traveling and being in those different type of atmospheres. It's wear and tear on your body. I think Nick being with ESPN, I think they push him into that role because it's magical watching him and Pat McAfee talk about stuff. It's just pure entertainment. It's funny watching him and Paul Feinbaum go at it. It's pure entertainment. It's funny to watch Nick Saban, Shannon Sharp, Mad Dog Russo, and Stephen A. Smith go at it on a Wednesday morning, talking about who's going to be the best quarterback or who's going to be a potential first round draft pick. It's great. But I think the ego in him, it just his ego's too big, man. His ego's too big. And so I just feel like that's what's going to end up happening. But I think ESPN will let him have his run. He'll get his flowers, and then he'll go back to work.
Can we address this comment here from Ashley? Because this is 100% true about coaches speaking in code. And we have examples. This happens all the time because I know Isaac said what you mean. So you can throw shots in code where another coach, it's the same way in a rap beef where only that opposing rapper is going to know what you really mean. And by what I said. Also, it's for recruiting. So, for example, Sark mentioning Ryan Wingo is not by accident. Yes, Ryan Wingo is going to be a great, prospect and everything, and he's going to help us early. And it's not saying that Sark's lying about that, but he's talking to French, right? He's talking to Lockett when he's saying Ryan Wingo. Wink, wink, right?
Wink, wink.
That's how you talk in code. When I start saying multiple coaches do this. Multiple coaches do this, okay? So it's not just speaking in codes to other coaches, but also sometimes to other players and recruits. Yeah, Lane Kiffin, when I catch flight, it's going to be direct. That's how Lane Kiffin is.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's not just it is for recruiting. It's also for coaching. You hear it when they talk about schemes and pressers. You hear it when they talk about their opponents, right? It's all about gaining an advantage or having, for us, it's not about it's never a word for word alliteration of what they're actually trying to say, right? There's a reason why they said something, and there's a reason why they said it the way they said it. We're very excited to be in the SEC. That means that is a shot, right, at the Big 12. The SEC is the greatest conference in all of college football. Yes, we know that, but and it's the highest level of competition that my players have never had in the past. Like, that is a shot at the talent that is inside of the Big 12. And whether it's direct or indirect, everything that they say, I mean, if you really listen to it, I get what you're saying where coaches are talking to each other. In some ways there are, but also in most other ways, they're really not. It's just about what are you willing to hear out of what they're saying. And if you're willing to hear what they're trying to say and interpret it in that way, then you'll find a lot of what you're saying actually is correct.
Well, the other thing too, Kiffin being direct.
Yeah,
he's at Ole Miss. I'm not at a blue blood high.
Yeah.
I mean, there's high expectations to the SEC. I'm not trying to poo-poo on Ole Miss, but he's basically like he's trying to be on his Mike Leach reincarnated type stuff. Where I'm at a smaller school, I'm here to cause chaos. Yeah. I'm here to break the mold. I'm here to break tradition. So when you're out of school like that as a coach, hell yeah, you can be more direct. You can't talk like that if you're the coach of Texas.
Nope.
Right.
There's a difference. And so, Lane Kiffin can say whatever the hell he wants off the top of his mind because I'm at Ole Miss. We ain't supposed to beat Bama.
We ain't supposed to be here.
We ain't supposed to be here.
Right? It's Lane Kiffin is acting what Joey McGuire did last year at Tech and anything that he does, right? Oh, everything goes through they could be 5-7. He can say whatever the hell he wants, right? That's what Lane Kiffin is doing. And then Mike Elko is the guy that's, I'm the new guy. I want to be sophisticated. I want to show my great football mind. Substance, right? That's something that they A&M fans think they're getting a lot out of Elko is substance.
The difference between Tech and Ole Miss, though, is if Ole Miss continues to win ball games and they continue to upset people, it will wake everybody up. Everybody will be on high alert.
That's a result of their boosters, right? That's not because of because they're blue, but that's more because of their boosters and the back end of that.
Well, he got rewarded too because he won. He went 10-2. So he went 11-2 because he won the Peach Bowl against Penn State, and they rewarded him with Walter Nolan and you know, and the other kid they got in the portal, you know, these big portal takes, you know, from an NIL perspective, right? So, you know, there's something to be said for that.
There's
right?
a lot of validity in that for sure.
Yeah, or when Saban says Texas and Georgia he's feeding Texas some rat poison. We do not accept rat poison here at Texas.
I don't think he's feeding Texas rat poison.
I don't think
he's feeding
motivating Alabama. If
right.
he's doing anything, he's motivating Alabama.
Agreed. That's less of rat poison for
coach talk. Yeah, coach talk. That's coach talk.
Again, ego.
Yeah,
ego, guys.
Yeah,
Texas beat him. So
right.
he's gonna hold Texas at a higher regard. You know, if you think about it, it's funny because Michigan and Texas are playing each other. Those are the last two teams to beat Nick Saban. And
yep.
You know, but Nick is gonna hold, especially because of Sark and because of what Texas did in both games, not just the Tuscaloosa game, but also the game at Austin. I think Nick is 100% genuine when he talks about Texas and where they're at with their team and the program based upon what he saw, what he had to prepare for, and what he ultimately went up against in battle on that field. I don't think that's smoke or rat poisoning or anything. Yeah.
But again, it's a shot. It's not a shot at Alabama. It's like a wake up, right? Look at this. This team beat me, and now I'm no longer there. And you think, yeah, bro, get a new life. Like, what are you talking about? So that's also a lot of that. So I think that's a fun conversation. The whole coach speak and coach code. I thought that was a very good conversation.
It was some slugs in there. If you go back and watch even some of the highlights,
yeah, there's some good stuff.
I see some slugs in there, boy. The only person that came in with bazookas is Herbie and Lane, but
Sark bring his own little, his little rifles, and Nick's just like, you know what? I'm just the commander of the battlefield. I'm just gonna sit up here and say whatever the hell I want because
Nick gets to sit up there. He can talk whatever trash he wants. He gets to sit on that perch until he's called and say, "Hey, listen, we need help with X, Y, and Z. Can you help us?" And he's gonna accept it or reject it. He might be too busy to do anything with Alabama at that point.
This is a fun little topic. You guys see Oregon blue blood status, it's been a hot topic for the last, I don't know, week, 2 weeks. Obviously, they're on fire on the recruiting trail. I don't see this. We talked about it last week.
Can you just become a blue blood though? Like what's
no?
I've always struggled because
blue blood means you actually win and you don't just pay money for players. And Oregon has never won anything that I can ever remember.
Listen, Oregon is a blue blood at having quirky ways to get kids to come to Texas, to leave Texas and come to Oregon. That is what they're a blue blood in. They have been doing this for 10 plus years, where they've gotten some of the one that comes to mind. Not LaMichael James. LaMichael James.
No, LaMichael James.
LaMichael James.
Yeah.
How do you? That kid. First off, if you go and look at his high school stats, it's absolutely nuts. I don't understand. Like, I still don't.
I'm about to bring up this list because there's a lot.
The Decorian Moore situation, that's still saying I don't like that. And even though I've been told by a coach that, hey, like once he goes and plays on the West Coast and it's 40 degrees in September and 100 degrees at home, he'll reconsider. I don't know if that's a thing. Decorian's been very adamant in saying that he's not opening up his recruiting. So I don't know if that's a thing or a flip miss type situation. But I'm tired of it. I'm tired of Oklahoma. I'm tired of Oklahoma, and I'm tired of Oregon coming in here and stealing kids. And then these kids get on these stages and perform at a just ginormous rate where they get the opportunity to shine. And it's just like these kids come and they play Texas and they blast Texas. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, historically, I don't want to go into that on how we've dropped the ball on other college legends that, they went off and did, great things at their school. Meanwhile, they wanted to come to Texas and didn't do it. So I'm step on my.
My thing though is we've seen, to your point about LaMichael James, we saw this when Chip got hot in the early to mid 2010s, right up through the Marcus Mariota years before he went to the NFL. They got, or even the late 2000s, right? Oregon was recruiting all over the place, spending money, but the school that's always bothered me is Ohio State. They're the ones that have really set up shop in Texas. I mean, everybody's bummed out about Decorian Moore, but we're not talking about Riley Pettijohn, who's probably a more significant factor for what we need, right? And he picks Ohio State. We had the year when Dobbins and all them came out, and Okuda and them boys were the top 5 players in Texas went to Ohio State. You've had guys like old boy on the Jets now that went to Ohio State. I mean, that's one of those things where, to me, I'm more so paying attention to how do I combat, because they have a war chest too that nobody ever seems to want to talk about. But they come into Texas and we have, even when we beat people, like when we, for recruits, sometimes it's us versus Ohio State at the end.
There's these years of certain positions that happens to, right? There was a run of quarterbacks where there were really good quarterbacks in the state that went to different places. You talked about NJB, those guys. That was a receiving class that went all over the country but didn't come to Texas.
Yep.
It almost happened with the linemen until the great the lineman haul of 2022. Kelvin Banks, those guys almost slipped through the cracks.
Could you imagine what this Texas team would be without Kelvin Banks?
Jesus,
Yep, he was an Oregon commit.
He's an anchor.
That was big.
He's an anchor. He is a focal piece of that offensive line.
Yep.
If we didn't have Kelvin Banks, we would be in some serious trouble.
I'm sure we would figure it out, but we would definitely not be in the spot that we're in right now.
Kelvin Banks is a generational talent.
No,
he's going to when he goes to the NFL, he's going to start day one. Generally, he's going to start day one in the NFL. You don't run across those type of offensive linemen like that, and a guy like Kelvin Banks is going to end up being a household.
Especially if you want to protect an investment at quarterback. Let's say you just extended a quarterback, you just drafted a quarterback, you're going to want Kelvin Banks to be your insurance policy for that. So I completely agree. The other thing, too, with Texas and just the whole recruiting dynamic, I look at I don't know. It's one of those things where recruiting – and in a nutshell, with year over year, like you said, position wise, it gets interesting, and we're always going to have to deal with the Oregons and the Ohio's. They're not going anywhere. No. But the good news is the NIL that Texas has put together is competitive. It's very, very good. Our recruiting is good because we have a good staff for development now that we can prove. We can show the NFL draft picks now, and we have a sexy offense with a coordinator. We're in the right conference now. We're going to get our share as long as we continue to win. Recruiting to me is not this is just this cycle with 2025 where we're a little caught up. But over time, I think over class over class over class, if we continue, if we keep having seasons like we had last year, I'm not worried.
Yeah. I just want to get to a point to where we're like Alabama, right? Where you have a running back room that has 3 guys that are going to be in the league, and they've made significant, money and have made significant and contributed significantly to their teams that they've had. Where you have a wide receiver room, I think we're getting to that point wide receiver wise, but I would like to see that come over to the defensive side, and we at one point we were like that, right? Where you had, a Michael Huff and Griffin and things like that, and then you have a young Earl Thomas comes in, and then you get, you have a Vince Young there, but you got a Colt McCoy that's a freshman in the national championship. That's what I want to at least get back to. It doesn't feel like that right now because of what we've seen go elsewhere as far as talent, but I want to just transition back into that.
But the person that bothers me is not getting Jabbar Muhammad.
Oh,
we botched that one.
But again, I think we botched that. There's so many examples of like that like Jabbar Muhammad, a hometown guy, wanted to come home, right? Finish out his career, play with his cousin. Like you can't botch things like that. Just had a successful season, clearly showed you he could play, but you don't want to. You botched that in the end because you don't want to pay him enough.
I hope that's the one where we may be having a conversation because the margins are so thin, especially in this conference. Yeah, we may be having a conversation about a what if scenario. I hope that's not the case. I wish Jabbar well at Oregon. I really wanted to see the brother, like you say, play alongside his cousin.
Yep.
But that to me, then I would have no questions about the secondary at all.
Yeah.
If I had Jabbar, Makuba, Manny, Derek
Williams, we're good.
Jade, we straight.
Yeah.
We straight. And then you got Kobe just kind of sitting there, just soaking it all in. Yeah, we would have been just fine.
Still a little. They should be better this year, but there's still a little. I gotta see it. You know what I mean?
I gotta see it, and I gotta see what's ran because
That's the other, I've got to see the technique that's being taught again, because we saw some, like we said earlier, we saw some film for some stuff last year from that secondary, and it was not pretty. So
Not the butts to the sidelines.
the butts on the sidelines, the constant watching of the quarterback.
The amount of cushion that was given to some of these wide receivers.
Yeah. Unreal. It was unreal. Some unreal behavior that was being taught. I don't know. Do you know where Kieran's been? Have you been in contact with him at all recently?
Oh yeah. Kieran's good, man. Go check out all the stuff he's doing all over social media. He's working a lot with the OT guys overtime. So he's doing some really good work over there. He gets a little scoop, not just on the football guys, but also the basketball prospects as well. He calls some games for OT now as well, and on top of doing his normal content. You'll see Kieran during the when there's football games going on. You'll see Kieran back as usual.
But have you spoken to him at all about his record prediction for the season?
I have not.
Okay. So
once you post that, it's gonna go viral. It's gonna have hundreds of thousands.
Again, really, we know how Kieran works, but
he will shake up the internet for sure.
He's great. Kieran's a good guy. I hope we'll have him on someday.
Kieran just posted yesterday because Drake Stoops was selected by the Arlington Renegades in the XFL.
I need to check. I need to check on that.
Yeah, so Kieran posted yesterday and tagged me and our friends from the Horns Down podcast, Chris and Seth, because a few years back when we were all on the show together, they said that Drake Stoops was going to be drafted ahead of Jordan Whittington, and we had that famous debate there. And as you guys now have seen how things have played out, that take aged terribly.
Yeah, we got drafted there because of Pops.
Yeah. I know there's I know there's a sense of panic within the fan base on this recruiting class. Guys, relax, man. It's July.
I have no doubt that we'll pull something out.
Yeah, we want to do well in June and summer recruiting, just like everybody else. Sark does not want to do well in summer recruiting because Sark has said this multiple times. I would much rather you not commit to me in July and January and take other visits. Like, to Sark, if you're committed, you're committed. You're not asking me to be your girl and then going on other dates, right? If you are committed to this university, you are committed to this university. And so he would much rather play the long game. Be patient. It is July. And things will come about. Do not worry about it. Yes, there are definitely some needs that I know that we all want addressed in this recruiting class, but I would just say chill. Relax.
Yep. I see my partner in crime in here, Nino's cool.
Hey,
what's up, Nino?
I was just about to
what's happening?
Nino, what's up? Friend of the show, friend of all of us as well. Hope you're doing well, Nino. Thanks for popping in.
Check out our show on Wednesdays, the SEC Connect. We will hold Chris accountable.
That is some of the most entertaining trash talk.
We have fun on there.
Who's all on there? You, Nino, Chris, and who else?
Ty from Around the Table Sport, and Jay from Unfair Sports, as well as the Locked On Senators podcast. Mm-hmm. Jay and Chris are OU.
Yeah. They're hilarious. They are hilarious. Now, I watch because you always want to hear what your rivals got to say or what other people have to say. I tune in because I want to hear they just don't care.
And weekly. But we also cover the whole SEC, not just Texas and OU. Right. We do try to keep it to the whole all 16 teams on a weekly basis. But those guys are with all of us in the room, with 2 Texas guys, 2 OU guys, and then Ty being the Alabama referee in the middle. It's
wild.
It makes for a lot of entertainment. So I appreciate y'all plugging that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Blue Bloods. By the way, the blue blood thing, Clemson's not even considered a blue blood. And look what they did last decade. And people aren't considering, like, The blue blood thing is a whole, it's
a historic thing. Yeah.
A historic thing.
Yeah.
Now, what you want to be is a powerhouse, right? Like,
more
there's
modern.
a difference. Yeah, Oregon can be a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Miami was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Miami was definitely a powerhouse.
Powerhouse is more of modern, trendy versus, historical,
Yes.
forever, your ancient blue bloods,
because
right?
it takes into account there's a formula. There's a formula for blue bloods. I think it's natties, first round draft picks, all Americans, right? All these different metrics, right?
Time.
And then
yeah.
So it's like, I mean, it's a very, very, it's Texas, OU,
Nebraska,
Alabama, Nebraska, Notre Dame,
Ohio
right?
State, but all
Ohio
these
State, Michigan.
All those schools have been around for like 9,000 years. So
exactly,
you've been around for more than 500, you probably won't even be considered.
I wouldn't. Yeah, Nebraska still fits that. They even though they haven't done anything in the last 2 decades. The Nebraska I grew up with, that 1995 Nebraska team, is still the greatest college football team arguably ever.
Yeah,
and I remember watching that. They were tough.
The moment Nebraska,
when you look at their history, they check every box.
They're gonna be talked about again. The moment Texas became relevant again, that's all anybody talks about is Texas this and Texas that. The moment Nebraska does the same thing, it's going to be just that. That's what a blue blood is, right? People are looking for you to be good because that's what they expect of you, and it's a certain aura around it as well. It's not just about what
the sport.
Yeah.
So USC.
I pulled up a quick list here of the blue bloods, and there is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
Ohio State, Notre Dame, Alabama, SC, Oklahoma, Michigan, Texas, Nebraska.
That sounds about right.
Georgia's not even on there.
Georgia's not there. Miami's not there. Florida's not there. Clemson's not there. And these are guys that have if we really take a look at it in the last 20 years, these are the guys that have been, in the mix, right? Florida, Michigan, Clemson,
Florida State,
Alabama, Florida State. Those are the guys that be in the mix, and a lot of those guys are not considered blue bloods. So, Oregon, I think, if they start, maybe start generating some stuff. But until then, I don't think, I think that'll
Oregon's goal should be to be the next Clemson. That should be their goal.
Yeah, they should be a power. They should
be in the mix.
Powerhouse.
Yeah, to be in the mix with everything. Oh,
yeah,
man.
But that's the thing. All those schools you mentioned, they were good for like 5-6 years, and then they go back into the woodwork, and you don't hear about Florida's in that. Florida was good from like 2000. Was that 2005 to 2000?
2005 to 2011. I'd say Florida was in the mix.
Yeah. We haven't heard about
the Spurrier years too.
Yeah. The Spurrier years for sure.
We haven't heard about them since, right? Clemson was good for a good 3, 4, or 5 years, right? In the late 2015s. We haven't heard from him in 3 years. Now there's all of a sudden there's a doubt about their head coach and whether he's even like ready for this era of college football, whether he cares to be ready for this era. So now they're going through a semi-transition.
That boy Sweeney got shot at by Paul Finebaum.
I'm just gonna say this and then bounce because I know we're about to wrap up.
Yep.
Does Clemson even pop off like that if South Carolina doesn't fall off the way that they did? Because Spurrier, people forget, and I say this all the time. Spurrier had South Carolina. He had back-to-back 11-win seasons. He had the #1 recruiting class. And if you go look at the NFL players that were the Stephon Gilmores, the Jadeveon Clowneys, the Melvin Ingrams, right? Alshon Jeffrey, and my boy, my boy, may he rest in peace. He's not dead, but his leg died. Marcus Lattimore.
Yeah,
all those guys were in one group.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was a talent. That was a lot of talent.
Those guys, they were so once they kind of dipped, it really that Tidewater region really opened the door for Clemson to
Yeah, for
sure. And then they again, all it takes for these like Oregon's probably on the way to that, because all it took was for Clemson to hit like a recruiting class or two that was, hey, we just had a really good recruiting year. So we might see something like 3-4 years down the road where maybe next year it's a little bit, and then you kind of get like 2 or 3 years down the road where they might snatch one, right? Because they grew something like that. I don't feel bad for Dabo though.
Actually, I don't feel bad for Dabo because Dabo has failed to. He's failed to adjust, and he doesn't want to adjust, and that's the one thing that Nick didn't want to do. So Nick got out. I feel if Dabo doesn't adjust, he's going to be gone within the next 2 years.
Yeah, they're either gonna make him leave or he's just gonna leave on his own.
Man, your community is strong, Steven. I love your community. I really like
these people here, man. I can't stop talking.
They don't stop, man. I love these guys. I love it.
Talking an hour ago, man. We
just out here vibing.
Let's give ourselves a simple plug. If you enjoyed our show, we appreciate you guys coming out. Follow us on the Texas Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast on YouTube.
Please do.
My guy Tim and I, we're live every Thursday, 8:30, talking all Texas. We don't just talk about football. That's what we're going to do for the next 6 to 8 months. We talk about basketball. We're talking about baseball, softball, all the good stuff. And, give us a follow. Hit us up on Twitter. I've seen a lot of you guys on Twitter, so I know you interact with us on Twitter. So go ahead and smash that like button. Comment, continue to comment on our page. Subscribe to our follow. We appreciate you guys coming out for us. It's been a good time. I know Steve got to go here for a little bit. Do you want to plug in your stuff before you head out, and we'll kind of wrap up with the rest of the crew for the night?
No, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on. Everybody part of the FP community, please follow the Longhorn Fan Battle guys, Harish and Tim. They do great stuff, and I know y'all are going to be hitting them up to get gamer tags to play some NCAA football and compete. So, but in terms of just what I got going on, I'm back, right? So just excited this was fun. I'm getting re-energized, it's like riding a bike. So more to come.
The swinging thing, man.
Yeah. And eventually start having multiple shows weekly. So
cool.
Yeah, follow us on all platforms, and just blessed to be a part of this Texas Longhorn community.
You're live Wednesday nights, or you're live Thursday nights too, aren't you? Normally
Wednesdays we do lives on the SEC Connect show with Ty, Jay, Nino, and Chris, and then I haven't picked a day yet, but I'll have another just for FP lives weekly going into the season, and then our normal videos with different guests like Tran and whatnot. And so
let us know, and we'll definitely we'll toss those up on our page too to kind of throw that out there for everyone. All righty, Tim, let's come to that time of the show. Where can the people find you?
You can find me at Tim Wayne on Twitter. You can also find me at the Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. I'm not the guy that's generally talking a bunch of trash. That would be my guy over here to the left of me. So you can find me there. Let's talk football. Again, we're a couple of days away from spring training. I'm sorry, fall camp. So let's talk about it. I mean, hopefully we could get out there if they have an open practice. I know they kind of been, over the last couple of years, and I'm not mad at it, where Sark has kind of reined everything in a little bit, and it's not as been open as like a Mac or maybe a Tom, where they have multiple open practices. But hopefully we can get out there, and just, communicate, get out there and talk and be a part of the community. So just look for me there.
Absolutely. And you can find me at the Uncle Gandhi. That's GHANDI. Also find me on the Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. I will tell you right now, I don't care if you have 1 follower or 1 million followers. If I feel like flaming you, I will flame you. I will not care.
That's the guy doing the trash talk, guys. It's not me. I promise you.
That is why we call
more of the, let's show off some game clips, and let's show off some shiny new helmets or some new gear or stuff like that. That's more my speed. I like talking about other stuff like that. My man over there, He loves talking to trash. I'm not the talk trash guy, so don't aim it at me. Don't aim it at me. And he'll go all night too. So if that's what you want to do, he'll do it. He'll go all night with you.
Yeah. But hey, it's always a good time. We call it a fan battle for a reason. We love Texas just as much as the next guy. We appreciate you guys joining in. Steven, thanks for being our guy tonight. We really appreciate it.
Shout out to your community. I thank you guys for coming in here. I thank you guys for keeping us here for an extra hour, man. I like I said, I could keep doing this all night. You guys are super, super dope. This is exactly what we're trying to build here. We're trying to build a community. We're trying to build an active community at that. We're really active on Twitter. However, we want to bring that active community over to the YouTube space. So again, if you guys like what you saw or like what you heard tonight, give us a follow. We really do appreciate it. Again, Steven, thank you for bringing your community. Your community is really dope, and we appreciate it, man.
Hey, we absolutely. And one last thing, if you guys are into EA Sports College Football or you guys want to be a part of the game, Tim and I are coming up with an idea to involve all of our communities into creating a team builder team. So we'll put out more details on how you can be a part of that. We'll take it through a dynasty. We'll throw out videos every week, and we'll have a good time with it. So stay tuned for more details on that. And we are going to be dropping a copy of the game and a giveaway coming up here very, very soon. So stay tuned for that as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, be a part of that. But hey, between now and then, that's my guy, Tim. This is our guy, Steven. We're out of here. Peace.
Go Gable.
Go home, touchdown.